Alrighty, so what is cardio or aerobic activity? Cardio is anything that trains the heart. Technically, aerobics is anything that is using your aerobic energy system. So, slight difference, right? Because you can be doing cardio, but if it's very high intensity where you're not able to sustain that same speed for very long, then you are technically using your glycolytic energy system, which is the same system as when you lift weights from a metabolic perspective, right? Now, if you're doing like that low to moderate realm where you are able to sustain it, now you're using the aerobic energy system in which you're burning more fat for fuel compared to carbohydrates. Now, in terms of body composition, weight loss, it's not going to be a huge difference. The main difference is the calories, right? Calories in versus calories out is going to determine your weight loss. Now, it can have slight influences on body composition, but it's not the main thing. All right, the main thing is how big of a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus you are. Anyways, and of course, are you resistance training and that sort of thing, which has a very strong effect on body composition. Obviously, it's going to send a signal to your body to build or at least maintain the muscle that you have. And back to the cardio. So, one of the things that cardio does is improve nutrient partitioning, meaning that more of the carbs that you eat will be used for your muscle cells instead of your adipose tissue or fat cells. All right, that can help with glucose control. Lifting weights does the same thing. I don't want to say the exact same thing, but it does have similar benefits. All right, now one of the things that's different is that with cardio, obviously you're training the heart more, and because you're staying within like that target heart rate zone, or at least that is why I advocate for people, depending on what their goal is, and also depending on their current fitness level. So that's another reason why I don't go by heart rate percentage or percentage of heart rate max. I do what's called percentage of heart rate reserve, which takes the person's estimated heart rate max into account as well as their resting heart rate. And what that does is it takes into account their current fitness level. So that way you have a more customized aerobic activity heart rate for you. All right, now typically if you're coming off a long layoff, or let's say you're barely first starting, walking is generally acceptable. It's going to give you improvements in your heart and lung function. But that said, you, like with any training, will need to progress it at a certain point. And then say you'll go 55 to 65% of heart rate reserve. That's like on the lower end. It's still a little bit more than a warm up, right? So it's going to elevate your breathing rate, your heart rate. It's going to make you sweat a little bit, depending on what climate you're in, right? All right, so just because you're sweating, don't think like, oh, okay, I'm working hard, because obviously if you go outside here, like me right now, right? If you go outside here, you're going to sweat no matter what, even if you're just walking, right? So don't just purely go by how much you're sweating. You have to have an elevated heart rate, have to be breathing more, and that sort of thing. So this strengthens the muscles around the diaphragm and the lungs, and it doesn't, you get small improvements in lung capacity, but that's not the main effect in terms of the lung function. When it comes to lung function, it's not so much that the lungs are expanding more and more. Obviously, they're physically limited by how much your ribcage can actually expand. But what does get better is the efficiency with which your lungs can extract oxygen from the air. Okay, and then that can be measured actually by taking someone's VO2 max, which is the volume of oxygen consumption at maximal exertion levels. So the way they'll test this basically is the person's going all out in their cardio, and they're testing how much oxygen that person is consuming, right? So as a person gets more fit, they're able to train harder, they're able to go faster in their cardio, and their lungs are extracting more oxygen from the air. And along with that, think of it as like that's part of the fuel source, right? So as well as the food that you eat. So that is one of the things that is used to measure the lung function. Also, improved lung function helps with basically reducing the stress and symptoms you get from respiratory infections. You can still get sick, but think of it this way. If your lung function is up here and you get a respiratory illness and it takes a hit, that's still better than, let's say you started off down here and then it takes a hit, you're even worse, right? So that is why cardio can be highly beneficial for your health and your immune system too. Weight training also helps improve the immune system. That's been documented very well. So I'm just kind of doing a compare and contrast right now. So there's certain benefits that weight training and cardio have in common, but then there's also ones that they don't overlap as much on. One of the things that cardio does a little bit better, again, because you're staying in that heart rate zone, is improving the efficiency of the heart, so that the volume, what's called the stroke volume, how much blood each heartbeat can pump, increases, right? And so that's one of the things that helps with reducing risk of, say, heart attacks and other heart complications, because you're improving the efficiency of the heart. It doesn't have to work as hard when you're at rest in order to pump blood and circulate that oxygenated blood throughout the body, which is what all of the tissues and all of the organs in the body need for proper functioning. There's other benefits as well, but wanted to go over some of these, which are the basic ones, and why it's a good idea to have both cardio and resistance training in your exercise routine.